Georgia beat Ole Miss into a coma last night, 52-17. They clinched the SEC East. We've got Georgia versus Bama in the SEC championship game again, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. Brock Bowers, a living, breathing alien amongst us, returned yesterday. And he played and, with a repaired ankle, did all kinds of things that a human shouldn't be able to do. He should probably still be in a wheelchair. Most of you would. I'm speaking to you as a guy who got sidelined for 5 days with food poisoning a couple of weeks ago. I don't think Brock Bowers would have missed 2 shows. That's just the way I'm going to put it to you. So anyway, before I mention anything on this game, I got to go to the post game because I thought Drake Stoops of Oklahoma had one of the great pieces of sound last week. But outside of that, when it comes to coaches talking, Kirby Smart talked for Brock Bowers post-game, and I suspected that there were going to be people in that kid's ear telling him not to play. It's not worth the risk. Because there are casuals all over the place. Some of them happen to be agents, and they got in Brock Bowers' ear, and it's not shocking that Brock Bowers chose to play, but Kirby Smart shed a little light on the decision-making behind that process afterwards. Take a listen to this.
Well, people called him and told him that, and those people will not be representing him, I can promise you that, because all I did was piss him off. And he said, I have people call and tell me that I shouldn't play, Coach, and he said, that just drives me crazy. He wants me to play, makes me want to play more to prove them wrong. He said, why am I in this game if I'm not going to come back and play? I mean, he's not risking millions, guys. He's has an opportunity to get more millions. Like, it's the other way. It's not the way because he's a great player. The NFL knows people heal. Like, they heal from that injury. They've had tons of that same injury in the NFL. So all he did was go out and stamp himself as a warrior that said, I'm going to go ahead and practice on Tuesday in front of 15 scouts. Then I'm going to practice on Wednesday in front of 12 scouts, and they're all going to be over going, oh, my God. And he's got an opportunity to move up because of who he is.
Well, Pate State material, Kirby. You could just say Pate State material. Everyone would know what you mean. So the game was tied at 14. Just enough to draw in an audience, basically. This game's tied at 14. I got back to my hotel in Harrisburg last night. Game's tied at 14, and I'm stupid enough to say, oh, Lane's got something for him tonight. And so we went back and checked. With 14 minutes and 12 seconds to go in the second quarter, it was 14-14. With 14-12 left to go in the fourth quarter, it was 45-14. So Georgia just not so casually rips off 31 unanswered. Padlock stat here. If I tell you this on Friday, you need to know nothing else about this game. Georgia averaged 8.6 yards per carry. And Kendall Milton, who has been injured 9 ways from Sunday, had his career game yesterday. Good for him, by the way. 9 carries, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. I said I thought last week the key was not letting Jackson Dart do a lot of what Peyton Thorne for Auburn did. Like, I think that Georgia on the wrong Saturday is susceptible to QB run messing a lot of what they do up. Well, Kirby Smart thought that too, and they're not going to let it happen. And Jackson Dart yesterday, 8 carries for 20 yards. This game came down to what games have come down to since the beginning of time. Since God invented football, the game has come down to the following. Who has players? And every now and then an upset convinces you that players and talent is not the end-all be-all. Like the 1 or 2 times out of 10 make you ignore the 8 or 9 other instances out of 10. And it always helps if we have Lane Kiffin in the room, because Lane Kiffin is probably the most brutally honest coach this side of Rush Probst who has ever roamed a sideline. And Lane Kiffin had this to say afterwards.
We got to recruit at a higher level, and I'm not blaming people. We got to coach better, but at some point, whatever those stats are, we've signed 1 5-star, they've signed 24 or something. Those kind of do show up at some point. So, we'd have to recruit it at a better level, do a better job recruiting.
Dude, they're so good, man. Like, Georgia's so good. I say talent is the end-all, be-all. Actually, I didn't say that. That's a trick. Talent's not the end-all, be-all. They acquire it and they develop it. And yet again, Georgia's turned into an ignition team. If you're new to the program, we got like our own dictionary of terms, like Phil Steele. We have to have a guide in front of the show. But ignition teams are what we're looking for every November. And it's usually a team that's got plus level coaching and a plus level to elite level roster. And for obvious reasons, when you combine those ingredients, they start to pretty significantly scale their level of play when it comes time to in November. Georgia's doing that. Bama's absolutely doing that. Ohio State's doing that. Now, I know these are the usual suspects, but you got some other teams out there that are in these waters for the first time. You noticed yesterday, didn't you, how there were some teams out there that won by one possession against teams, kind of comparable to what Ole Miss is to Georgia. Georgia doesn't do that. Like, Georgia didn't mess around with Ole Miss. Bama didn't mess around with Kentucky. They throttled them. They pulled away from them. Well, in Bama's case, emptied the road stadium. In Georgia's case, they made you turn the channel long before the final. And that's what eventual championship caliber teams do. They didn't look like that at halftime of the South Carolina game, did they? That's because there are 12 versions of teams that we get every year. And for the ones who are elite programs, the versions of teams they're putting on the field come November are the best versions of themselves. So Georgia, ignition team. Once again, they owned third down. That's the best third down team in the game when you count both sides of the ball. They are now top 10 offensively. They're top 10 defensively. May very well be the best team in the country.